What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Welcome to a Thursday show, gang. Good to see everybody hanging out. Cujo's here, Andy's here, Lone Wolf's here. Lone Wolf had a nice little hit yesterday. Shouted it out on Twitter. I appreciate that. Congrats, buddy. Lone Wolf, what do we get? 3 lineups in the 5 max, $20 5 max entry. Looks like he put cashed 3 lineups, went from $60 entries to $610. I think he said he took down second place, missed first place by a point. We'll take it. Solid result. 10x. Not bad. So congrats, buddy. Congrats to anybody else who did well last night. I know we hit that Bobby Witt home run pick for anybody who threw money on that. Somebody mentioned it in the chat. I forget who said that, but somebody said they threw a little bet on the Witt home run at a pretty nice price. So solid there. I did not have a great night of results. Went a little long with Grant Holmes in some lineups on FanDuel. Did not really work out the way we needed it to. Hit a lot of the hitter spots, but just didn't get enough out of the pitcher spot. Otherwise, it was a pretty good day, though. I thought a lot of the stuff from the site was on point. A lot of the things we said on the show. Anyway, we stalled for long enough. Just 4 games to talk about today. It'll be a short one. Short for us, you know. Hopefully everybody out there is doing well. Weeks are rounding out well. No show tomorrow. Just a quick heads up. Seems like I'm going to be traveling like through the middle of the afternoon when a show would normally be. Heading down to my parents' house. So pretty sure no show, but projections, everything's going to be up on the site all weekend. No problems. And we'll be back live for shows on Monday, I assume. Staying there for Mother's Day on Sunday. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm coming back Monday or Tuesday, but presumably Monday. Anyway, let's get into this one. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel as we get started. Does actually help. If you haven't done that, it's the least you could do. Just click on the little subscribe notification thing down there. There's links in the description. Dive into the Discord. Discord's always free. Come join the community. Hang out. Even if you don't subscribe at the site, just jump in. Larry C says, that's bullshit. New Jersey Transit show. Yeah. Imagine trying to stream live from a New Jersey Transit train. Good luck. You barely get a cell phone signal there. But they're actually coming up to pick me up. I'm bringing Joker down with me. Cat will stay here for a couple of days. Just leave some food out for the cat. He's fine on his own. Can't really do that with the dog. So he comes with. And they're nice enough to come up and get me. Or us. So that's why I kind of have to play by their schedule. Otherwise, if I was just taking the train down, I would just go, at night Friday. I only have to be there Saturday, really. Saturday and Sunday. Anyway, for a 4-game slate, this is a really solid pitching board. Everybody on here is at least a reasonable 3-starter. You've got some up and down performances, obviously. We've got a couple true aces on the board, a couple guys pitching like true aces, and then a lot of wild cards at pretty good prices. So I actually really like this little 4-game slate we're dealing with. Should be a good one. Just updated the run board. Projections are up. Everything's live at the site. rotoscouts.com. Give it a look. Under $1 a day gets you access to baseball. Basketball projections are live for the single game basketball contest tonight. 2-game hockey slate projections are live. Those went up right after the early baseball slate locked. Had the early baseball slate up today. Bonus content for everybody who's a subscriber. If you're new here, every now and then things go free. If I do an early slate, I might open it up for everybody. So keep an eye out for that stuff. But check out the site in general. Subscription under $1 a day for access to all 3 major sports. Anything else that hits the site is also included. So we have the Phillies at the Rays. A 9-run total there. 4.95 coming down on the Phillies side of that one. They're going up against Ryan Pepiot. A good pitcher who has definitely hit some bumps along the way this year. He's given up a fair amount of runs. Hasn't really hit form outside of a couple decent strikeout days, but one of them he gave up 6 earned runs. That was against the Red Sox. He's also just faced some challenging teams in here. He's faced the Yankees twice already, the Padres, the Red Sox, even the Angels. First 2 games were against Colorado and Pittsburgh. Those 2 went fairly well. But Pepio's got a lot of talent. Wouldn't shock to see him hold the Phillies down. Like I said, every starter is going to be playable here, but the Phils are obviously pretty appealing with the power upside in that ballpark at a 4.95 implied total. On the other side, the Rays going up against Jesus Luzardo, who has been pitching like one of the top starters in the league right now. They're pulling a 4.16 implied total against. They've got offensive upside on their side of the equation as well, but Luzardo looks very solid up toward the top of the board. The Reds and the Braves, just a 3.38 noteworthy low mark for the Reds. They're going up against Spencer Schwellenbach. Close to the top talent on the board. Believe he's the top projected guy on that board. Yeah. Top projected guy. That's just stupid. I'm just noticing that DraftKings price right now. I didn't really process it when I was putting the projections up. That is idiotic. I don't know why he is that cheap. He's a $10,000 pitcher who is essentially free today on DraftKings. He's too cheap on FanDuel as well. He should at least be in like the mid nines. You can see what Vegas thinks of it. Again, in a 3.38 implied total for a not terrible Reds offense. The Braves drawing a 4.72 on the other side of that. They're going up against Nick Lodolo, who does have good strikeout upside. The last time I think we chased him was with the Rockies at Coors. And he two-hit them, shut him out over 7 innings, struck out 9 at Coors Field. Monster start. Last time out, though, he got dinged. 6 earned runs against the Nats, who were pretty good against lefties most of the time. 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, gave up a homer. 6 earned on 10 hits over 5 1/3. You take the good with the bad with Lodolo, but he's at worst playable. There are strikeouts in that Braves lineup. Again, Schwellenbach is an absolute monster. He has given up 6 earned runs twice. I know he hasn't been maybe top caliber, but he's had a few top-end starts already. 8 innings, 10 strikeout game against the Marlins, gave up 2 hits. A 1-run game over 6 against the Phillies. He's very, very good to be at that price. And again, the run board agrees. The Blue Jays at the Angels, a 4.51 implied total on the Toronto side. They're pulling a little bit of upside against Jose Soriano. And then it's Chris Bassett, who is also somewhat vulnerable on the mound for the Blue Jays. The Angels checking in at a 4.09 implied total. Playable on all 4 corners. I think we'll talk about both pitchers. I think we'll talk about bats from both sides. It's going to be a lot of that today. And then we round things out with Yoshi Yamamoto against Brandon Pfaadt in a pretty decent pitching matchup at the end of the night. Pfaadt, another young pitcher who's been up and down, much like Pepio, but very good when he's on. And Yamamoto has just been very, very good up toward the top of the board. 6 strikeouts the last time out. He hit the Braves at Atlanta over 6 innings. Was very solid in that one. He's got a pair of 10 strikeout games already. It's been excellent. So really high end there, but we've got 2 high end offenses and they are drawing good totals. The Dodgers are the highest total on the board against Pfaadt. They're showing a bunch of power upside, and the Diamondbacks easily playable at a mid-4s total. We're expecting offense in Arizona at the end of the night. So that's one to definitely keep an eye on as far as another all 4 corner spot. 17 people here. Hit the like button as we're going. Larry says, I'm kind of shocked Schwelly's only around 50% owned, I would assume you mean. Yeah, I thought he'd be around 70 on a small slate. At that price, yeah, he ought to be. He should be ridiculously popular at that price. I feel like I'm a little low. I'm at like Gundacker height. I'm usually like more up here. 7-zip, bottom of the second for Detroit. Damn. I have Casey Mize. I threw one lineup into that contest just since I projected it. I have Casey Mize on the mound. I also put him in my my weekly lineup in the Dynasty League. He's been pitching really, really well. Good enough stuff to get through that team at Coors. 2 strikeouts already. Love it. Bobby Witt, another big day so far. I have Glaber in that lineup, and I have Kerry Carpenter in that lineup. Carpenter hasn't done anything. Glaber's having a day. 1 for 2. Run. RBI. Take it. Things go well for Mize, that lineup will at least cash. That'll do. So, again, really deep pitching slate. As we get started here, 87, too cheap for Schwelly. 77, too cheap for Schwelly. Plenty of strikeouts available in that Reds lineup. They've been good, though. They showed some offensive upside yesterday. Was it Friedel had the big day out of the top spot? Yamamoto, just really high price. Needs to be very, very good against that Diamondbacks lineup, and they're excellent. So that's a tough spot to pay off that price against this board. You've got a lot of alternatives rather than just paying all the way up for Yamamoto. What I think you maybe get is him a little bit lower owned than he ought to be in like a vacuum on a small slate. But that is a high price. It's uniquely offset from everybody else. Jesus Luzardo is not unthreatened with the total that the Rays are pulling and the ballpark that he's going to be pitching in. There's also rain in the area, just something to be aware of. Doesn't seem like it's threatening. Seems like another day of Florida passing storms, but there is a little bit going on down there. The other game that has a little bit of an issue is Cincinnati-Atlanta, that game that Schwellenbach's pitching in. Roth's take is it should be all fine, but he's got it yellow-green, so just figure I mention it. Otherwise, we're perfectly fine everywhere else in the two other games. I do think Luzardo's got a ton of upside, especially at 9,000. I love the idea of just, you skip Yamamoto and just pair these two is probably going to be very popular, but it's got a ton of upside. On the right day, he blazes through that Rays lineup. He's been very, very good, and there's good strikeout stuff there. Bassett, not unreasonable at 8,500 on DraftKings. 96 feels a little bit high against this board. I'd much rather have Schwelly. I'd probably rather have either one of those guys, but Bassett easily good enough to find some strikeouts and pay off that price. So again, everybody's playable. Lodolo could find enough case to be worth 8,300 on FanDuel against the Braves. There's 6 innings there. There's a handful of strikeouts and a decent start there on a lot of days. 6,700 is very, very cheap for that opportunity on DraftKings. You absolutely compare that and that. You absolutely compare that, and I could continue on. Every pairing is in play today. Every single combination of these pitchers. If you want to take Soriano and Pepio, I wouldn't call you nuts. For that discount, there is just as much upside with that price offset as there is in pairing any of the top pitchers. Got to nail your bats, but you're buying such big upgrades at the plate. And those guys have tons of upside. These are all good pitchers. So these prices down here are a little bit silly. For this kind of a slate, they probably should have just shaped it with these guys in the 7s at least. So I think you're very cheap. They're obviously, again, some of these guys are up and down, like these two, especially the two young guys. Very up and down, facing threatening lineups. But at 6,300, Pepio can absolutely succeed against Philly. Falk can succeed against the Dodgers at 8. That's obviously higher than these guys. These two especially, though, very, very cheap for their opportunities. So there's a lot to work with. We'll go through them game by game as usual. But it's a interesting 4-game slate given how good the pitching is. Lone Wolf's running an Atlanta stack. Free money Freeland. Yeah, I mean, I like the upside for Atlanta as usual for power. Lodolo, I would consider one of the more vulnerable pitchers on this slate. Philly's lineup just dropped. That's what I was grabbing. I want to see on Twitter, too, if any of the others came out as we get into this. The 2 lineups that were in when we started the show are up on the site. The rest of them will get up there as soon as we're done. Let me just pull this up real quick. Hey, how about my New York Knicks last night? Oops. As I'm saying that, as I'm thinking about basketball while I'm pulling this up, I accidentally clicked on their NBA feed, not their baseball feed. Oh, weird. They didn't even have the Phillies yet. It's weird when Labs beats the underdog handle every now and again, because usually they're so far out ahead of Labs. But every now and then they grab one. Yeah, right? Second straight comeback. I mean, it was a clone of the first game. My buddy Lou, big Celtics fan, missed the first game. And at the end of midway through the fourth, I was like, it's really nice that the Celtics give Lou a second shot at watching that first game. It was unbelievable. The second straight 20-point comeback. Our Knicks. Yes, of course. You can share. That's allowed. Us long-suffering Knicks fans all together. City was going nuts. I get over to one of those viewing parties. They've got like big screens set up by MSG. Anyway, let's get into this thing. Power says I agree with Shaq and Chuck that we got to win game 3. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. The 2-0 lead, obviously, and coming home is great, but they don't. You'd like to think that MSG is going to be a nice home court advantage and really matter, but it oddly doesn't necessarily for this team. We'll see. I mean, the environment's going to be nuts, but they're still kind of, it's very close for the series odds still. But they've obviously closed the gap nicely. They were massive underdogs going in. But we'll see. I don't want to get out ahead of anything. Has it been all day that Labs has been slower or Labs has been quicker? Maybe somebody a little bit lazy is working over at Underdog's handle today. Or maybe they're just watching the early games and catching them as they come in. We got a long way to go before this short slate. Anywho. All right. Phil's 4.95 implied total going up against Pepio. So Pepio's pitched to a 4.23 ERA, a 4.17 xFIP. This isn't where you want him, but these numbers aren't exactly completely terrible. He's just run into a few too many home runs, a little bit too much good contact, 10.3% barrels. This is over our threshold. So is that. This is a little bit happenstance in the 38 1/3 over 7 starts. He hasn't been perfect. He hasn't been completely sharp. The last 2 starts, he didn't allow any home runs, though. 4 1/3 against the Yanks. The pitch count got away from him. Struck out 1, walked 2, gave up 2 earned on 5 hits, but came out after before qualifying for the win, but didn't allow a home run in Yankee Stadium, notably. Against the Padres over 6 innings at San Diego, 1 earned run on 3 hits over 20 hitters. Only struck out 3. He walked 2, but managed the game pretty well. He had 1 bumpy game with a 6-run total. Gave up 6 on 9 hits against Boston. Faced 29 hitters. He struck out 8 in that game, but he gave up 2 of these home runs. And he had just a bumpy stretch in his 3 starts in the middle against LA, Boston, and the Yankees. 3 home runs, 2 home runs, and 2 home runs. Struck out 7 in that game against the Yanks, though. He was decent in those 2 games outside of losing a couple homers. So there's just some happenstance in those runs scored. He's got 2 8-strikeout games, a 7-strikeout game on the season. He's only pitching to a 21% rate overall. And again, over the last couple outings, that has dipped. Still walking too many at 8.4, still way too many guys on base, but a very solid 12% swinging strike rate. This needs to come way up given that. So we've got some positive attributes. We've got some things that model well to last year. He should come back for some strikeouts. You can see the difference in the CSW year over year. Just a few called strikes have gotten away from him, a percentage point or so of swinging. Stuff plus is down a little bit, but it's still 7 points above average. He was a fly ball pitcher last year who gave up too much premium contact, but a little bit lighter in the exit velo, the hard hit rate. Amounted to a 3.15% home run rate. He's very gettable, no doubt about it, but he could also easily pay off 6,300, 7,600. Even if he gives up a couple of runs, he's in play here given what this board looks like. So very much on the board. Jesus Luzardo on the other side, 9,000, 10-2, easily worth it. You can see the numbers laid out for you. Sub 1% home run rate so far on just 6.3% barrels, a moderate 10.3 degree average launch with pretty good ability to check hard hits and exit velocity so far. Pitching to a 1.94 ERA with a 2.98 xFIP. That's very solid, sub 3 underneath the sparkling low ERA. Excellent strikeout to walk so far, 27.6 to 6.5. Not bad at all with a 14.3% swinging strike rate, a 30% CSW. And he's always been this guy. He's always been a good strikeout pitcher. Going back to 23, 28.1% strikeout rate over 178 and 2/3 in 32 starts with a 14% swinging. 3.63 ERA with a 3.72 xFIP was a little bit higher. Little bit of circumstance in there. Year before that, in 18 starts, 30% strikeout rate. Dipped in the small sample from last year, the 12 starts, 66 and 2/3 coming back last year. 21.2% strikeout rate was pretty weak in terms of the ERA, but he has obviously returned to form of the old version of Jesus Luzardo. Worth the price. Guy has ace caliber stuff. Against a team with a 26.3% strikeout rate in this projected lineup. We'll see if we got the confirmed version yet. Doesn't look like. There's monster upside in Luzardo today. This is not necessarily high. If you look at last year's number, 27.9% for this same collection of hitters. Year before that, most of these guys, that was 23.7%. There are so many strikeouts available for Luzardo today. The upside is huge. There's a little bit of lingering, downside in the model from some of this from last year with the runs. Year before even, with some of the runs that he gave up. Wasn't bad by any standard that year. But there's a little bit lingering that keeps his projection down slightly lower than these guys, but it's very close. It's very competitive. Last time out, 6 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, gave up 9 hits over 5 1/3 to Arizona, but struck out 6, walked 1, just 2 earned runs. 2 unearned runs over 6 at Wrigley against the Cubs, struck out 5, walked 3. It'd be weird if it was at Wrigley against anybody else. 7 strikeouts against the Marlins, 1 earned run, 2 runs allowed on 8 hits. There are hits spread through all these games, a handful of walks through all these games. But it just doesn't amount to much. The 118 whip is fairly clean. Lot of upside in Luzardo today. And at $9,000 on DraftKings, it's not even that expensive. 10-2 on FanDuel, worth it. Phillies bats, obviously the core, if you want to go that route, around the 2 big home run bats. But Trey Turner's also been excellent. Turner's quietly up to a 120 WRC plus, 307, 375, 394. We keep bringing him up. The power hasn't really arrived yet. The barrels are still down by about half. 39.1% hard hit is lingering right around the rates he's put up over the last couple of years, though. 17.8% strikeouts right around where you want it. The walks are technically slightly up a little bit. He's getting on base at a 375 clip. The 315 xwOBA is lower than you'd want it, certainly. It doesn't completely betray what's going on. We know that he's capable of hitting 300 for a season. We should see more power come back, I would think. But even if he just keeps being this guy, there's tons of value there. He's stolen 8 bases, taking advantage of getting on base ahead of Harper and Schwarber. Great lineup spot. Stock gets on ahead of him, gives him opportunity to knock runs in while setting the table. Stott at 270, 336, 381, 102 WRC plus so far. Decent for counting stats. I would expect most of this to come down somewhat, but he's been very productive so far. Harper's hit 6 home runs. Schwarb's has 12. They're obviously dynamite. Harper's power is, as we've talked about, a little bit down. But if you look at the numbers, I mean, the barrels and the hard hits are exactly where they were last year. His power was down a little bit last year by comparison to previous years, but he still hit 30 home runs, had a 240 ISO over 631 plate appearances, had 21 home runs in 546 the year before that. 18, is this Harper? 18 in 426? Yeah. So, I mean, 30 home runs is monstrous, even with the dip in premium contact. 15.2% barrels, 46.8% hard hits in that smaller sample the year before. He hit fewer home runs. Finished the season with a dip in power that's kind of lingered as far as the output this year. 6 in 163 is a little bit off the pace that you would expect. 184 ISO is definitely low by comparison to what he did on the exact same contact last year. So he's lost some results, but there's nothing to be concerned about. You can see it in the 378 xwOBA. Kyle Schwarber at a monster 431 xwOBA underneath a ton of productivity already. He's already at 318 ISO, 172 WRC plus, 14.6% barrels with a 60% hard hit rate. This top end, these 3 hitters are stars. They're worth any price. That's not a bad collection of prices to find these guys at, especially in this ballpark against a pitcher who's a fly ball pitcher who has been vulnerable. Any one of the guys around them. Stott is a bolt-on. He's expensive at 48 on DK. 31 is reasonable-ish on FanDuel. Nick Castellanos, on a day where we've elected a new pope, obviously has a bunch of upside for a home run. He's at 4 so far. 350 xWOBA. He's hitting the ball very hard. 9.1% barrels, 43.6% hard hits. So look at all the hard hit in this Phillies lineup. Not including Stott necessarily. But everybody's excellent at just putting good bat on ball. Multiple guys, double-digit barrel rates. Max Kepler, tons of power from the left side. Could easily capitalize on a fly ball from Pepio going into the right field porch in this ballpark. So love the upside for Kepler for a home run, 6.45 in the home run model. Not a bad spot at all. He's got 5 on the season, 191 ISO at 370 xWOBA. JT Realmuto making great contact so far. Very, very cheap at 3,900. Don't sleep on JT Realmuto on DraftKings as a catcher. Play him as a first baseman or a util in rotation with Harper. You obviously want way more Harper in as a ratio in your Philly stacks, but it's very easy to play them alongside one another. And every now and again, if you're going to this one instead of Harper, it's okay. He's got that much upside. 3 home runs, 4 stolen bases on the season. 332 xWOBA tells us we're going up a little bit. So does this premium contact, which is in line with previous seasons. Really like the price on Realmuto where you have to play catchers. Alec Bohm is just way too cheap at 3,200. That's a spectacular third base option. 2,700 on FanDuel, first and third base. He's slashing 237, 273, 311. That does not continue for the full season. Strikeouts are a little bit up. Walks are a little bit down. He's typically in this kind of territory. 14 and 15% strikeouts the last 2 years, mid-6s walk rates, or upper 6s walk rates. This year it's slightly up, 18, and the walks are down at 2.8. That's going to normalize. That should come down to these kind of levels over a larger sample. It's 143 plate appearances so far. Barrels are up. Hard hits are up. This is a guy who is a 280, 332, 448 hitter last year who had 15 home runs on a 115 WRC plus. Year before, almost the same season with 20 homers. Alec Bohm is just good. It's a good right-handed bat for a cheap price at third base. That's not a bad way to extend this stack on DraftKings. Not a bad way to grab him and just cheap price wrap him around on FanDuel. Good one-off at third base in other lineups. Brandon Marsh at 27-25. This is a bad 59 plate appearances. Don't be deceived. Brandon Marsh is very good. He gets on base like crazy. Last year, 328. The year before, 372. Year before that, it was just 295. All right. 2 out of the last 3 seasons he's gotten on base a lot. A lot of hard hits, a lot of premium contact, 10% barrels, 47.4% hard hits last year, 9.1 and 48.7 the year before that. There's a lot of strikeouts, but there's also a lot of walks. That's who he is. He's a light version of a 3 true outcomes guy. Doesn't see the upper end results like a Kyle Schwarber does, but he's got that kind of a profile, and that makes him an excellent wraparound option for 2,500, for 2,700. He's very cheap. He helps you average down these prices. And he's good at getting on to reset the table ahead of those guys. So let's say we are skipping $4,800 Bryson Stott, take a cheaper second baseman or a better second baseman, depending on what we do. We want all 3 of these guys. We'll include Marsh as our table setter ahead of them for 3 turns through the lineup. That already brings us down to $4,750 for the 4-man that includes these guys. And then I can grab Max Kepler at 41. So I'm at $4,620 for the 5-man. Or I can go to the catcher. I get my catcher in there and I get it down under 4,600. It's 4,580, so 4,600 a piece. But that includes Turner, Harper, Schwarber, JT Realmuto, and Brandon Marsh. That's a great 5-man. Not a bad price against this pitcher in this ballpark. I go back and forth whether I would prefer the lefty power upside from Kepler for the negligible price difference, or if you just take the catcher spot there. If you're building a bunch, you obviously go back and forth and do it both ways. And there's other great building. I mean, Castellanos belongs in that same conversation. So does Alec Bohm at 32. You could easily go like that. That's a $4,400 average. Bohm, Marsh, and the 3 stars. Very easy. On FanDuel, they're cheap. Same deal. More difficult to reach from some of these spots, given the 4-man restriction. But same deal. Average those prices down. On the Rays side, nice little stretch of power showing right there against Luzardo. One of those is Brandon Lau, who scuffles against lefties and has been atrocious in his minimal plate appearances against lefties. We saw him hit, I think, 6th yesterday against the lefty. We'll see what they do with Brandon Lau. That's why I was hoping we would get this lineup. Doesn't look like we have yet. Let's see if Underdog has. They have not. Hey, Carlos, what's going on? Good to see you, buddy. Don Pain is universal. Says, are Philly going to be chalk? I would expect they're going to be popular. 4-game slate, everybody's going to be at least somewhat popular. Let's see. I'll flip over to DraftKings here. So the 3 stars are going to be popular. Castellanos will be popular. Bottom end of the lineup, not nearly popular enough. 2 of the 3 guys that we were just talking about at the bottom of the lineup, 2 out of those 3 guys are owned in the single digits per these projections. The other one is just barely into the double digits. Several guys in the middle of the lineup are perfectly low on. There's so much ability to just, combine these hitters in different ways to gain leverage on the field and do whatever you need to do in different lineups that, it's not really something that you need to sweat that much. It's more about like the full combinatorics of who you're putting into each of those stacks rather than like just Philly as a blanket is popular. But yeah, there is popularity in there. But it's around the guys you just kind of take with the field anyway. If Kyle Schwarber hits 2 home runs and you don't have them, you're not going to. So you got away from the 25 or whatever % of the field. This number that they have, I think, is pretty low. It's above 20, but it's pretty low. I said 25. That's higher than what they have. But you're not going to feel good about getting away from that. So you just take those guys. The guys that are the differentiators in that lineup are not going to be crazy popular. Yep. Mention that, Lar. New Pope today. Castellanos home run. That's why it's one reason he's going to be popular for sure. But that's just a good lineup. That's a 9-man lineup. You can put that together in any different combination. It's such a good mixing and matching slate today. Great day to play a lot of lineups. Yandy Diaz at the top of the Rays lineup. Priority bat against Luzardo, assuming he's in the leadoff spot, 3,800, 2,800 from the right side. You get a lot of upside out of him. 5 home runs on the board this year. A 349 xWOBA suggests we're going back to previous territory with this hitter who's been spectacular over the last 2 seasons. It's already low strikeout, familiar walk rate territory. Nothing to dislike about Yandy Diaz outside of a tough matchup against Luzardo. Christopher Morel, we've talked about that swing plenty on this show so far this year. 3 home runs, a 333 xWOBA. His creator runs 2% better than average by WRC+. He's got a 20.4% barrel rate. He's also got almost a 40% strikeout rate. So there's some good with the bad or bad with the good. But when he connects, monster power upside. 2,600 with second base eligibility on FanDuel is highly desirable. That's a good one-off opportunity. Facing a lefty, premium power upside. If he dips in the lineup, I like it slightly less once we're talking about like 6 down. I would assume he's going to be hitting somewhere in the top 5. From 5, perfectly fine. He would see maybe a minor downgrade via a slight, decimal point worth of plate appearance downgrade. But love him in the 2 spot here. Love the power opportunity, 9.55 in the model. One of the 3 guys right about the magic number. Brandon Lau, again, we'll see whether he's in the lineup and struggles against lefties. But we do have lingering power available against Luzardo from years past. Lau has plenty of power in general. Just a matter of the lefty factor. If they happen to get to Luzardo, obviously we get additional opportunities against the pen. Junior Caminero from the right side, tons of power there. 6 home runs on the board, a 323 xWOBA, making great contact. 9.5%, 49.5% barrels and hard hits. Not really striking out for a young power bat. A 20.7% strikeout rate is fantastic this early in his career. It was 21.5 in the sample from last year. 6.2% walks last year is slightly down at 4.3% this year. Tons and tons of upside. Really like the bat in an ongoing sense. Again, tough matchup. Curtis Mead, Jose Caballero, Cameron Misner, Danny Jansen, Taylor Walls. We get to a lot of mixy-matchy type opportunities down here. Chandler Simpson not in this projected version of the lineup against the lefty. We'll see whether he's in the lineup today. If he's there, it's another extremely speedy guy with an excellent hit tool. He's been a little bit up and down so far, catching up to major league pitching still. But direct swaps for guys like Jose Caballero, who's mostly a hit tool and speed guy. He's got 8 stolen bases this year. Hasn't really come through with the BABIP, just a 225 average, but getting on base a little bit at a 321 on base. Struck out a lot so far this year at 34.6. It was high last year at 27.5, but he's at least double the walk rate so far. That's probably not going to stay in place for very long, but he's not overly expensive. He fits at multiple positions. He's a playable option, but he's not a priority. Misner, another lefty. We'll see whether he's in the lineup. He's hit 3 home runs. He squared the ball up nicely. 188 ISO, 278 XWOB, but kind of betrays that. Actually, he's just a 5.7 and 35.7. Did that come down dramatically since the last time we talked about Cameron Misner? Or was I just misspeaking? Who am I thinking of that had really solid numbers from the left side? It's going to bother me now. Is it Aranda? That's who I was thinking of, I think. Yeah, Aranda's at 14.7% barrels and 60% hard hits. That's the lefty I was thinking of. Apologies for that. Not Cameron Misner. Mix and match piece there. 271, 314, 458. He has driven in a few runs. He's got 3 home runs. He's stolen 2 bags. But the 278 XWOB is not ideal. 120 WRC plus probably coming down, not making great contact. Danny Jansen's just a mix and match quality catcher. Taylor Walls is just a mix and match quality shortstop. And honestly, that's a position you want to kind of prioritize with a good bat on a short slate like this. You can get very different by playing Taylor Walls at short, for sure. You can get even more different on FanDuel, where you could go double shortstop with one of them being Taylor Walls. And that would be a way to still get your priority shortstop. You're burning a position, but it'll be a unique combination of players most of the time. Taylor Walls hasn't given us much this year from the bottom of the lineup. Last year, he gave us 16 stolen bases in 252 opportunities. The year before, he had 8 home runs, stole 22 bags, 201, 305, 333. Was good for a stretch of that, but you can see he's consistently below the Mendoza line. He's consistently not getting on base at even a 300 clip. So there's only so much appeal to doing something like that, even for differentiation's sake. And we did not get the lineup that whole time I was talking, unfortunately. Hunter Green, grade 1 groin strain. I forget whether grade 1 is bad or good. Either way, going to be out for a while. So Lusardo, Phillies bats, Rays bats, Pepio, probably. But Pepio, as with everybody, is very playable and is very desirable at those cheap prices. So definitely in play. Again, going to be a lot of everything's in play today. The Reds with a 3.38 implied total, the low point of the slate for runs by a pretty dramatic amount. Again, if you weren't here earlier when we looked at the Vegas board, that's really offset. It's not correct via these because of all those zeros in there, so it should be shaded like red against all these 4s and a 5. Reds are at a very low run total because Spencer Schwellenbach is just good. Even in a kind of iffy start, we're still at a 3.92 ERA. You can see the 3.18 xFIP that he's pitched to underneath it. 21.6% strikeout should be significantly higher. Last year, he pitched to a 25.7 with very similar stuff. 13.6% swinging strike rate last year, 13.9 this year. You can see the jump in stuff plus so far this year. Whoops. Just a few runs allowed, just a little bit of happenstance in here. Spectacular walk rate at 4.1%. With the expected increase in strikeouts, that should become a fantastic. It's already a very strong strikeout to walk ratio. Should become a spectacular one. There's no reason not to believe in Spencer Schwellenbach. He's just run into a little bit of circumstance. Again, last time out against the Dodgers, 3 2/3, gave up 6 earned runs on 8 hits, gave up a homer, struck out 4, walk 1. Obviously a meltdown for earned runs. Start before that, 6 innings against the Diamondbacks, 3 earned runs on 7 hits, struck out 6, walk 1, but gave up a key homer. 7 innings against St. Louis, he gave up 2 earned runs on 8 hits, struck out 5. And then the 4 2/3 against Toronto at Toronto, he gave up 6 earned runs on 6 hits. Wasn't great. Gave up 2 key home runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. Had a spectacular start against the Marlins, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. 10 strikeouts, 2-hitter over 8. Capable of breaking out deep starts. He went 7 in that start against St. Louis. Wasn't a good start or a bad start, but the depth is nice. Upper echelon talent. Kid is very, very good. 7,700 is a broken, incorrect price. Vegas is telling you that with this run total. There are Ks here. This confirmed version of the Reds lineup is currently striking out at a 27.3% rate. That includes Santiago Espinal at 9.2%. It also, of course, includes Rhys Hines at 66.7%, so we should ignore that. But if we do the same collection of hitters from last year, 21.9%, and that leaves out Matt McClain, who the year before, he was out all last year. The year before was at 28.5%, and this year is at 31.7%. We'll give him the lower of the two numbers, and it's a 22.7%. There are plenty of strikeouts here for Spencer Schwellenbach to go find. Love, love, love the upside as our top projected pitcher for this price. That price is also too low. It's got upside to the quality start, got upside to the win. The Braves are pulling a 4.72, the second highest total on the board against Nick Lodolo. Their offense looks very solid today. Should support the win equity for Spencer Schwellenbach. I like the idea of stacking him with Braves bats. Joker. Hey. Stop nibbling your paw. You're going to hurt yourself, and then you're going to be gimping around again. And you're making disgusting sounds in the background. Those weird gurning noises in the background were courtesy of Joker. Well done. Either that or I just have a gimp in the corner that you guys don't know about, like in Pulp Fiction. Lodolo, 67.83, striking out 17.8%, only walking 4% so far. 3.27 ERA with a 4.27 xFIP, just a 1.04 whip. Hasn't been bad. Hasn't been standout either. Limited for swinging strikes, limited for strikes overall, but he's been keeping guys off base, limiting opportunities fairly effectively. Last time out, that didn't exactly go his way against Washington. 5 1/3, gave up 6 earned on 10 hits, struck out 4 and walked 2, allowed a home run. But the start before that, again, at Coors Field was excellent. 7 innings of 2-hit ball, no runs, 9 Ks. And then a couple mixed bag starts. 3 earned runs over 5 2/3 at Miami. Didn't meet expectations. 4 earned runs over 4 2/3 against Seattle. You could say the same thing, but Seattle's actually pretty decent. And then the first 3 starts of the year, he went 6 plus. Didn't allowed 2 earned runs in the first start. Didn't allow an earned run in the next 2. Just moderate strikeouts. Hence the 17-something% strikeout rate. But for these prices against a free swinging Braves team, last year this group of hitters, 22% strikeout rate. So far this year, the guys with a sample, 22% strikeout rate. Oh, the second is screwing us up on him. Just take it off. He's in there either way. Just depends on which side I grab the lineup for. So 21.7% with Michael Harris correctly accounted for. There are strikeouts there. It's not a monster upside spot, and there's obviously a ton of danger. But for those prices, Lodolo's easily on the DraftKings SP2 board. He's a cheap option on FanDuel with a little bit of upside. You could find a 5-6 strikeout day with 6-7 clean innings. Wouldn't shock me, especially given the ability to potentially keep walks off the board, keep these guys off the bases. But the Braves bats obviously a priority. We've got this stretch of power as usual. Every single day that's there. 2 of the 3 guys above the magic number for home run upside. Matt Olson slips slightly below in the cleanup spot against the lefty, but tons and tons of upside for him. I don't really sweat Matt Olson lefty that much. 6 home runs on the board, a 398 xWOBA telling us there's tons of upside to come. 16.5% barrels and 56.7% hard hits. Looking a lot like the Matt Olson from 2 years ago who crushed, 54 home runs? 50 plus. Ozuna for 43-34 against the lefty. Love the upside for him. 9.6% barrels, 49.4% hard hits. We continue to be hovering below last year's numbers in terms of the contact as well as the results. The triple slash is down to 268, 428, 438. Obviously, one part of that, the 428 on base, is spectacular. He's supporting a 405 xwOBA underneath that. It tells us all the rest of those numbers are going up toward that on base. 149 WRC plus, even with a heavy air quotes decline so far. He's priced way too low on DraftKings at 43. That's another price mistake. Just the idea that you could like straight line that and you're at 45, 80 a guy and then pick off their pitcher at 51. Not a bad setup. Ozzie Albies at 46. Still very playable. 5 home runs, 5 steals. Just a 281 xwOBA, obviously concerning. The 134 ISO, obviously concerning. 13 points below average for run creation via WRC+, obviously concerning. The contact is what it is. It's down from 2 years ago. It's similar to last year. Low strikeout, medium walk. He still resembles Ozzie Albies most days. Just hasn't seen great results. Not a lot to cling to outside of faith. But 4,600, 2,800, if you're stacking Braves, taking him at second base, positionally, tons of upside today. Sean Murphy for 44, just buying this cheap contact at catcher. It's not quite the value that Remuto is at 39, but 4,400 for Murph in this spot is spectacular against a lefty. He's crushed 7 home runs in 87 plate appearances, a 344 xwOBA with 303 ISO. It's a fantastic option. Eli White at 35-24, playable, 8.2% barrels coming off in a small sample from last year. Decent numbers. Over 70 plate appearances is at 303, 343, 545. Been one of the more productive bats for this team so far, 143 WRC plus. Michael Harris has been bad. Eli White's putting up the numbers you would expect from Michael Harris so far, but at least he's stolen 7 bases, hit 3 home runs, giving us some counting stats. There's nothing really else to talk about in here because it's been weak. Keeping strikeouts low, but not drawing his walks. And then Nick Allen is just a mix and match infielder. Point of differentiation, sure, on a small slate. Slashing 256, 309, 300 with 5 steals so far. Hasn't been unproductive necessarily, but a 74 WRC plus tells you that he really has. Just chasing some light counting stats, and you can see the weak production over the last few seasons in a backup role. That's all Nick Allen really is. Any given slate, 2 base hits, though, could be slate bending for a cheap shortstop. On the red side against Schwelly, it's a challenge. I think you do take shots with TJ Friedl to bounce back with another good day. 3 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 273, 338, 392, 99 WRC plus. Not a ton of support outside of just frequent bat on ball and a decent ability to get to first base, but he's very good at those things. And he's really cheap, hitting ahead of McLean and Ellie. And obviously, we've seen the upside. 5.22 in the home run model is not nothing, but he's facing a very, very good pitcher who we like a lot. Lone Wolf saying he's on Kim 2,500 at second base. That's pretty cheap. Thanks, Dave. Dave Schneider says his likes for you and sub. Go Dodgers. Like it. Andy's here. Tango Hotel going to need a pair of pliers and a blowtorch. I had a gimp after I stubbed my toe. I had one before I stubbed my toe too, says Cubs fan. Nice. So, yeah, Reds, it's just drawing against the best pitcher on the slate, in my opinion, talent-wise, or second best maybe, depending on what we think of Yamamoto. Competitive for that. But McLean, Ellie, top 2 priorities in this lineup every day. 11% and change barrel rate for both guys, mid-40s hard hit rates for both guys. Obviously, you're getting tons of strikeout, but you also get a lot of walks, a lot of upside for steals, power, everything shining through for Ellie. McLean, a little bit more difficult to see outside of the counting stats. He's at 168, 294, 290. A 321 xwOBA at least tells us we're coming back up around the average, and obviously the contact is terrific. So you just ride the production from 2 years ago that we saw from this player. The fact that the counting stats have been there, the lineup spot, there's plenty of advantage for getting him cheap, too, at second base. 44-31, not a bad option. The positions, obviously, there's a lot of second base options on this team. He's the top priority 1, and that's where you want him because you want Elliott shortstop. 37-58, not inappropriate for him. 5 home runs, 14 stolen bases so far. Getting on at a terrific 343 clip to pay off those steals and those opportunities. Needs to push some of the numbers up. Given that premium contact, we should see it rise. 322 xwOBA, you'd expect maybe a little bit more under the covers. I'm actually surprised that's as low as it is. 102 WRC plus, but obviously we've seen there's more to give from that player. Gavin Lux still producing 302, 396, 422 just for 134 plate appearances so far. A 332 xWOBA to support the upside. Making good contact. Hasn't been barreling the ball, but that hasn't been a big attribute for him in the show so far. But a lot of hard hits. Reasonable strikeout. Very good walk rate. Just needs to keep doing what he's doing, and it's a fair breakout season. Spencer Steer at 37-27. Playable for the counting stats. The slash line's ugly over 130. Striking out at an average rate, drawing an average walk rate. 3 home runs, 2 steals. He's in the mix for shares because he's not expensive. I don't love him at first base. I'd probably rather have him in the outfield on FanDuel, maybe second base, depending on what I'm doing with McLean in that lineup. But he's a lower priority than McLean would be by a pretty wide stretch. Santiago Espinal, more a hit tool-oriented player, 322, 378, 378. He's paying also on base, a 110 WRC plus. Guy who needs a lot of help from his friends. But I like him if he's paired with like Tyler Stevenson in the next spot, or possibly for a cheap price, Rhys Hines from 2 spots further down. I know Jose Trevino's been good over 87 plate appearances this year, but we've got ample I really came close to saying we've got ample sample. We've got plenty of sample to tell us that Trevino is not this hitter. 3 home runs on the board. You can obviously mix him into stacks, but between the two, Stevenson's the priority catcher bat. So far for him, over 24 plate appearances, a home run, 331 xWOBA, 200, 333, 450. Creating runs 3% better than average and putting very good bat on ball in the tiny, tiny sample. Rhys Hines in small samples has hit some productive plate appearances. Low end, high strikeout, a lot of zeros out of him, but a mix and match piece that won't be that highly owned. He's way more expensive on DK at 35 than he is at the dead min on FanDuel. You probably prefer him as an outfielder over there if you're going to use him just as the apple box to reach something else. Third base, you're taking up a more vital spot there on a four-game slate. Schwellenbach, Braves bats, that could easily go the other way around. Lodolo for a cheap price, and then the Reds bats in last. Blue Jays and the Angels. We do not have these lineups. This is a 9:38 game. The next one's a 9:40 game, so there is an offset between the two. Just be aware, as you set your lineups up. If you want swappability or anything like that, obviously you don't put the 2 games at the beginning of the slate together. But that's neither here nor there really for baseball. Rays lineup is finally in. There is, as I thought we might see, no Brandon Lau. I'm going to go back to the Rays lineup real quick. It is notably different. So we do get Christopher Morel in the 2 spot. I love the upside there. Junior Caminero in the 3 spot. Plenty of power upside still from him at 9.67. The trio of righties up top is really interesting. We actually do get Jonathan Aranda in the lineup against the lefty with all that premium contact so far that I talked about briefly by mistake when speaking about the wrong person. Cameron Misner is also in the lineup, but he dips down to the 8 spot down here. We do not get Chandler Simpson against the lefty. Most of these guys are the same, just in a slightly different order. Danny Jansen's more interesting, hitting 5th. 6.73 in the home run model. He's got 1 on the season. Last year, Jansen hit 9 in 324 opportunities, but he had 17 in 301 opportunities with a 246 ISO the year before that, and 15 in 248 opportunities with a 256 ISO the year before that, back in 2022. So there is some upside for power there with Danny Jansen. Don't necessarily sleep on that against Jesus Luzardo. If they get to him, especially with Jansen in the 5, that isn't necessarily a bad opportunity. He's a reasonable bolt-on. I maybe undersold him when we were talking about the Rays before. Aranda being in the lineup is interesting. Let's see what, since I still have him pulled up here. He's made 24 plate appearances against lefties this season, and they haven't really gone well. 167. He has gotten on base at a 375 clip in the tiny sample, 167 slug, a 0 ISO, 88 WRC plus in the tiny sample. It's obviously fairly meaningless. He's gotten on base 3 times via singles in the 24 plate appearances, and he's walked 5 times, struck out 8 times. But again, very small sample of plate appearances. For his career, it's only 59 plate appearances against lefties. Still a very small sample. 19 strikeouts, 10 walks, 2 doubles, 5 singles, a 146, 305, 188 slash line, 60 WRC plus. Not a great option. Do we have I don't think we have splits for. Yeah, no StatCast splits, unfortunately, here. So the numbers haven't been great, but the lineup spot is obviously killer. 4,300, 3,100 has been at 317, 417, 554 this year with a 421 underlying xWOBA, 5 home runs on the board, and monster ability to put bat on ball. Honestly, even if you're including him, if you're just looking to the righties get to Luzardo, he gives you 2 offers in his first 2 plate appearances, but he's coming back around in like the 4th inning and they've chased Luzardo by then. There's upside. Get him against a righty and there's upside. So interesting configuration of the Rays lineup, but no Brandon Lau. Aranda essentially replaces that option, but it's obviously another first baseman here. So you've got a little positional flux there. A lot of multi-position guys on FanDuel. On DraftKings, it's less of an issue because you can go third base with Yandy Diaz. You can still go even Curtis Mead into that lineup at second base. He's been fairly disappointing so far, over 60 plate appearances. I don't think he was in the projected before either. Pretty mediocre, over 132 last year. Was okay over 92 plate appearances in the first cup of coffee back in 23. 253, 326, 349. Still 5 points below average, just 1 home run. But at least all right for the slash line. Hasn't really shown that in the show yet outside of some good games in camp. Doesn't change the priorities in that game at all, but different configuration of the Rays lineup. All right. So still nothing for these teams. Jose Soriano at 6,000, 7,300. The one thing that we'll throw into the mix is the Blue Jays typically pretty low strikeout. This lineup currently pulling a 21% average, but that's because Dalton Varsho is at 47.6%, not his typical mid-20s number. Let's give him the higher of those 2 numbers to average in from last season. That puts this team at a 18.7% average if he's striking out at the higher of these 2 numbers. If he's at that number, it's 18.3. So obviously it's a low strikeout opponent. Gives a little bit of a downgrade to Jose Soriano, who's only with striking out 18.5% of hitters, 10.3% swinging strike rate, at 27.2% CSW. I do believe that there's better stuff than that. Stuff Plus doesn't necessarily agree at 95.3, 99 from last year. 10.1% swinging strike rate last year, just a 20.7% strikeout rate. But the innings we had him in relief the year before that, 42 innings of relief work, 30% strikeout rate, 14.8% swinging strike rate. That stuff is still in there somewhere. 33.9% CSW. It's obviously operating at max effort coming out of the pen. So it's a different kind of a situation, and he hasn't been able to replicate it necessarily. But he's got an excellent fastball. He's got really functional stuff. Just needs to put it together. He's been very, very good at keeping the ball down. We talked about this last time out. Negative 1.4 degree average launch. I think that's gotten even more exaggerated. Last year, negative 0.9. Had just a 1.71% home run rate. So at least a noteworthy attribute in his ability to check power. Unlike other guys who have that attribute, he is still actually pushing some home run upside in this direction. Typically, when we have guys at negative launch angles like that, we'll see even good home run hitters like these on the other side dip into the 7s for these 2, and then these guys would be sub 5. But we are still seeing the Blue Jays power come through. Part of that is the frequency of bat on ball. Part of that is also the premium contact that he's allowed kind of in the mix with the negative launch angle. It's only amounted to a 1.79% home run rate again so far this year. He has not allowed a home run in his last 2 starts. He allowed 1 over 3 1/3 to the Pirates, but gave up 5 earned on 8 hits that day. Struck out 2, but walked 4. Does have a way too high walk rate. Does put too many guys on base at a 1.43 whip. Doesn't throw enough strikes overall. So even if you're not allowing a ton of launch, typically I'll say, we don't care as much because it's on such a low trajectory. We don't care as much about the hard hits, the exit velo. But when you mix in the fact that there are some barrels in there, which means includes launch angle, includes elevation, that he's giving up such a high-end hard hit rate, means that there are doubles mixed in here, that there are run opportunities given all the opportunities with guys on base. So there are dice rolls involved here, but I do believe that on any given slate, we can find strikeout upside. It's just not a great opponent to do that with. But at 6,000 at 7,300, we're way offset by price. We've got a reasonable enough projection and plenty of reasons to roll the dice. 4.51 implied total on the Blue Jays side. It's a both side situation. But Soriano's on the board, so is Chris Bassett. Bassett at 85.96, not mispriced. 2.95 ERA so far, 3.20 xFIP. Excellent strikeout to walk ratio at 25.7 to 4.2% walks. Been very good. 11% swinging strikes, just a 27.1% CSW so far. Hasn't cost him anything. Hasn't thrown enough called strikes to go with those 11% swinging strikes. That number's a little bit lower than you'd expect, but it jibes with where he was last year, and he's getting more induced swinging strikes. He's seeing a higher strikeout rate so far this year. Typically good at eating innings. 171 and 31 starts last year is a little bit lower than you'd expect. 233 the year before, more about what you would think of him as. 8,596, perfectly fine for those prices. A little bit of strikeout upside on the board with the Angels lineup at a 25.8% strikeout rate. Same group of hitters, 22% last year. There are some noteworthy low strikeout rate hitters, but they're offset by a bunch of guys who are appreciably in the mid to upper 20s. So plenty of Ks on deck for Bassett here. With his increased ability to go find them, you got to love the upside at those prices. So competitive with the top of the board already. And at 85 on DraftKings, that's a good guy to keep in the mix as far as your combinations on the mound go. Angels bats just as much in play against as the Blue Jays are, though, of course. Bassett over time, not really vulnerable as far as power goes. A few more home runs back in 2023, a few more barrels that season. He is a fly ball-oriented pitcher, though, but typically is missing barrels, keeping hard hits and exit velo down, keeping home runs down to sub 3 kind of rates. Same thing that you're going all the way back to 2022. Just a very stable 3-man in your rotation. He's going to put some guys on base. There will be some opportunities for run creation. You can see the impact he has on the home run numbers a little bit. Even Soler down at 7.83. So these Angels are going to need to sequence, and then they're going to need one of these couple of power hitters to come through with the big knock. But on a short slate at the higher prices, offset from some of the other alternative guys that aren't the very top end, Luzardo, Schwellenbach, Yamamoto, Bassett is higher priced, so he's going to need to be better than the Sorianos of the world. So it's an interesting back and forth between those factors. If you're going with the Angels, Zach Neto is a priority at 4,200, 3,300. That price is very low on DraftKings for his talent. It's appropriate on FanDuel at worst. 292, 343, 554, a 262 ISO, a 153 WRC plus so far, mashing baseballs. Tons of contact up at the top of the lineup. A lot of strikeouts, low walk rate, but puts great bat on ball and has seen fantastic results so far. Nolan Chanuel with all of the on-base skills. Tango Hotel says, I was looking at Curtis Mead and I don't get it. What's not to get? So 50 grade hit tool, 55 grade power via traditional scouting. In the minors, 288, 359, 481 over 410 plate appearances last year with 13 homers and 11 steals. Year before, 287, 377, 502, 9 homers, 4 steals over 292 minor league plate appearances. 331 very good minor league plate appearances back in 2022, 298, 395, 32 with a 234 ISO, 13 homers, 7 steals, low strikeout, high walk at every stop. Yeah. I assume you mean you don't get it for why he's not good. Yeah, why he's in the big league. He's in the big leagues because of those numbers. Why he's not good in the big leagues is anybody's guess. But he's actually a good prospect. He was very, very good in the minor leagues. So that's why I always land on him, and I'm like, he's somebody I want to say we need to at least consider, and we do. That talent is there. So the more people that miss it, the more people that think like, oh shit, why is this guy in the big leagues? I don't want him. The better. But yeah, it's been bad so far at the big league level. No question. We've seen top prospects fail constantly. It's not completely shocking. There's one in the Angels lineup that I'm about to talk about in Joe Moncada in the 6th spot. So far this year, he's been somewhat effective. A very nice 372 underlying xWOBA with a 286 ISO. 2 home runs on the board in his 35 plate appearances. It's been perfectly fine. It's just he's never really delivered in the long term since arriving with a ton of hype from Cuba. At this point, like a decade ago? How long ago was that? (2016). Age 21 in Boston. Ton of hype coming in. Had a couple decent stretches, a 139 WRC plus over 559 back in 2019 with the White Sox, hit 25 home runs that year, stole 10 bases, 315, 367, 548. So I can't say he never did it over a sustained stretch. That was a very good year. 2021 was honestly not a bad year either. And has just kind of faded since. He's missed a lot of games in that interim. I'd like nothing more than get Joe Moncada back. He's still only 29. There's time. 3,900, 2,400, reasonable option if you're considering the Angels and their 4.09 total. In between Zach Neto and all those guys, you've got Nolan Schanuel, as I was saying, with his on-base skills, 331 so far this year. Creating runs 6% below average. Medium kind of 248, 331, 359 slash line. That's a mixed bag of quality so far. Never going to be a guy who makes a ton of premium contact, but doesn't really strike out, draws a ton of walks. Great table setter. I would honestly flip him and Neto in that lineup, especially against a righty. They might. That would give you more upside there, but you do have a run of righties unless you're moving Moncada up or maybe Luis Rengifo, all those switch hitters down lineup up a little bit. There's some flex there that they could do that. But I think Shanuel's more interesting as the leadoff hitter. I think Neto's more interesting as the 2-hitter, or you just use Soler in the 2 spot with all his power upside. 13.8% barrels so far. He's hit 6 home runs. He's just at 230, 293, 437. As usual, there's some bad in with the good, but a 206 ISO, creating runs 3% better than average. Jorge Soler going up against a semi-gettable pitcher. He's the best upside guy for power. Even if we're just talking about doubles, still the best power bat on this team. Taylor Ward, 14.9% barrels, 47.9% hard hits. Logan O'Hoppe, competitive for the best power bat on this team right now. 9 home runs on the board in 112 plate appearances, a 19.4% barrel, 52.2% hard hits. That's very, very good. It's up from the already spectacular numbers that we've seen over the last couple of seasons. Getting a ton of strikeouts, low walk rate. You don't get much else. But he's slashing 283, 321, 547. So he's had some good fortune on his side. The 350 xWOBA suggests that it's not just good fortune, honestly. Seeing great results so far. So you'll take the strikeout rate even in the absence of walk. If he can manage to draw some walks, push that on base even higher, you'd be talking about a superstar. He's been very, very good, and he's only 4,000 on the DraftKings slate, 29 on FanDuel. Easily playable if you want to skip Nolan Schanuel and play him as a first baseman. It's totally fine. Rengifo not giving us what we expect. 210, 246, 277. We're way off the mark. 272 xWOBA, 45 WRC plus. Been terrible so far. Really disappointing. Gustavo Campero at 23 across the board. 12 pretty empty plate appearances so far. We looked at him the other day. Since it's a short show, we'll pull him up again. Minor league numbers last year in 2024, which was last year, which I didn't need to repeat, but I'll repeat it again. It was 2024 for those of you who weren't aware. This year, 2025. Last year, 2024. We're breaking a lot of ground on this show. 432 plate appearances, 14 homers, 33 steals. The year before, in 245 minor league plate appearances from high A to double A, 12 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 330, 408, 632 was obviously spectacular that year, but was playing that year mostly at high A as a 25-year-old. Last year, mostly at double A as a 26-year-old. So probably more a quad A guy, but he's very, very cheap down lineup, and there is some quality showing from the minor leagues. Kyron Paris, I feel less enthusiastic about, but we do have, I guess he hit his 6 home run yesterday. Been mocking him for being stuck there. There are still good numbers showing, but the dip is going to continue, and he's already down to 228, 311, 478 in the back of the baseball card. You'll get the occasional flashes of upside. Obviously, there's some power, there's some premium contact available, but it's going to be very infrequent. Striking out a 37.5% clip so far. On the Blue Jays side, I do believe in the power marks. You catch a mistake against Soriano, you can absolutely barrel the ball. Again, even if we're talking about doubles instead of homers, there's still some upside for power showing around Vladdy Guerrero, around Santander, even the George Springers, Dalton Varsho's of the world, showing a little bit of power upside. It's a reasonable consideration to just go to the frequency of contact, too. On a short slate like this, a low strikeout lineup that's just going to put the ball in play a fair amount of the time, that's drawing a 4.5 implied total that's pretty competitive with the top of the board. Not uninteresting just in that sense. Bo Bichette is very interesting today. 277, 315, 368, kind of the absence of power so far, but an 8.5% barrel, a 46.9% hard hit, just striking out 15.8% of the time, walking 4.2. So we're getting a ton of quality contact out of Bo Bichette. This is not only frequent contact, it's very high quality contact. He's been good. He's been better than this slash line. And you can see that right there in that 364 xwOBA. He has been underperforming the talent. For a minute, he was looking more like the Bo Bichette of old. We've slipped a little bit over the last, I'd say, 50 or so plate appearances, the last 2 weeks. But still a premium bat at 4,800 in my opinion, especially if he's leading off ahead of Vladdy Guerrero and Anthony Santander. Given their power upside, Vladdy's hit 4 home runs. He's carrying a 392 xwOBA underneath the concerning 141 ISO. That's a results-driven stat. The 392 xwOBA is telling us what we should be looking at. 15% barrels, 54.2% hard hits, striking out at a sub-20% rate. It's up from last year's spectacular 13.8, the 14.7 from the year before, but it's still very, very good. It's drawing a 12.1% walk rate. Those numbers should balance back to his normal routine. Santander's been the less productive one. 5 home runs on the board at 295 xwOBA under the 145 ISO. That actually is kind of concerning. The drop in barrel rate is alarming. Need to check what we're down in bat speed. Somebody I think mentioned the other day that his bat speed's been down. Something to watch. I don't think you panic yet. I think you just keep buying as that price goes down. FanDuel's kind of holding firm. They're at 3,000 now. They've come down somewhat. But DraftKings is ringing the alarm bell at 3,800. I think that's a really good buy. Got to remember, 44 home runs last year. I did this yesterday, but I'm doing it again. 28 home runs the year before that. 33 home runs the year before that. It's a hell of a lot of home runs in 3 seasons to suddenly just be dead. And he's hit 5 this year. It's not like you've got nothing for your investment. Springer's been terrific. He's still only at 43, 31 on FanDuel. He's got a 7.01 in the home run model today. We're slashing 304, 405, 520. Take advantage while he's still cheap. He is making spectacular contact. The price is going to go up because this looks like it's real. 379 xwOBA, 164 WRC plus so far. He's been terrific. Dalton Varsho in a small sample of batted ball events, putting very good bat on ball so far. It's only 21 plate appearances, but he's knocked 2 over the wall. He's stolen a base. 292 xwOBA tells us that it's all going to come crashing down eventually, like it usually does with this hitter. He's only at 167, 286, 500 in the slash line in the small sample of plate appearances, but a 110 WRC plus. He's very mix and matchy, but when he's in the lineup against a righty, he's always in play, and there is a little bit of upside there. You get a lot of strikeouts, but he can draw a walk. He can get involved in other ways than flashing power, but typically we do want the home run out of our show. 7.32 in the home run model today. He's on the board. Alejandro Kirk, capable of hitting the ball pretty hard. 49.5% hard hits so far this year. Last year it was 40.6. That's more like it. 38.3 the year before. 269 with a 292 on base, a 352 slug this year. Kind of a mixed bag of results. Pretty weak ISO, but he's hit 2 home runs, just an 84 WRC plus. It all completely jibes with everything he did last year. 5 home runs in 386, just a 106 ISO, a 94 WRC plus. Drove some guys in. I mean, given that lack of power, 54 RBIs, not that RBIs is in any way a good predictive or at all worthwhile stat. Just talking about what he actually put up fantasy points wise, just because of the spot that he hits in the lineup, that's not completely unproductive from how relatively unpopular and cheap he is. Same deal the year before. He had 43 and 422. He had 8 home runs that year. Not a good bat, but one that you can include. Back in 22, he was actually pretty decent. 14 home runs, 285, 372, 415. That was a really good year, 129 WRC plus. But he's not that guy. But playable at 31, especially when things are going all right. Addison Barger, a mix and match guy at 21 across the board. If he's in the lineup, third base and outfield eligibility, you can swap him back and forth. Probably more valuable in the outfield. Capable of hitting the ball hard, 8% barrels last year, 10% this year in small samples. Just delivering 162, 225, 243 this year. Last year it was 197, 250, 351, but he did hit 7 home runs in 225 plate appearances. Just a 154 ISO, a 70 WRC plus, substandard in both departments. You're just hunting for a little bit of lefty pop there, but he's capable of giving it to you. Ernie Clement, a little bit less so. It's more low strikeout, low walk rate, frequency of bat on ball. But again, that is a desirable attribute on a small slate if you're just looking at mixers. What I hate is that he's at third base. At least he's 2,200. Would greatly prefer to have him at second base, though, regardless of the price. Even shortstop, I would maybe sacrifice. Third base, I don't know. I want a better bat. What do we have at third? We really don't have anything on this team, except for those guys. I would actually honestly prefer probably Barger for 21 at third than Clement, just given the skill set, what the ceiling looks like. Clement may be a little bit more likely to produce a couple of fantasy points, where Barger is unlikely, but if he does come through, it's probably a larger number of fantasy points, if you get me. Moncada and Ifo would be the sacrifices on the other side. What does third base actually look like today? Santiago Espinal is not a sacrifice. Austin Riley's the big ticket, right? Riley, Bohm, Junior Camineros. All right, there's some upside guys. And then we got Muncy and Eugenio Suarez. All right, so this is the lightest game for third base. There are some good options. So I stand by that. I think Ernie Clement probably downgrades you a little bit overall at third base. Would greatly prefer him at second, maybe short. Nathan Luke's a mix and match quality bat, 267, 382, 378 with a 126 WRC plus, a nice 387 xWOBA lurking beneath the surface. Doesn't really make great contact, but he's been walking a ton, 12.5%. That's up from 11 last year, 12.9 in a small sample the year before that. Strikeouts appreciably low, 9.9% small sample last year, 14.3 small sample this year. But been decent in those departments as a wraparound guy, if you're considering this team. Not a bad option. The thing is, you've got multiple other outfielders that you're going to. So it depends on how much you want to fill your outfield with Blue Jays. But I would say Barger and Luke's probably the more desirable hitters down lineup rather than putting Ernie Clement at third base. So cue the Ernie Clement 4-for-4 day, for the cycle or something and put up a monster score, because that's baseball, folks. It's probably Bassett, Blue Jays bats, Soriano, Angels bats, but it's very much a four corners game, and it's very, very close. Come on. No lineups yet in this game. This one's also a 940. Carlos, that is an excellent question. Who did I make the home run pick of the day? I completely forget. We got Bobby Witt yesterday. I picked Freddie Freeman from this game. Sub 10 in the home run model, 8.34. A couple of his teammates higher up. I came close to picking Mookie, but I felt like, short slate Mookie's going to be owned anyway. Freddie will too, but maybe a little bit less so. And he's been mashing, and I haven't used him this year. I love the upside for the hitter. He's obviously very, very expensive, but I mean, this is prime Freddie Freeman right now. We saw a little bit of a dip last year after a spectacular 733 plate appearances, or 730 plate appearances in 23, over which he hit 331, 410, 567 with a 163 WRC plus, a 235 ISO, 29 home runs, and 23 stolen bases. He dipped to 282, 378, 476, which if you take the name off it is still a spectacular 638 plate appearances. He created runs 37% better than average. He had 22 home runs, but as you can see, those numbers are down across the board. He has come roaring back so far this season. It was a little bit of a start that looked kind of like this, and then he went out for 2 weeks, and then he came back, and he's just been crushing. 448 xWOBA underlying the already spectacular line at 362, 435, 713, a 212 WRC plus, 8 home runs and 108 plate appearances, getting on at a 435 clip, 13.9% barrels, 43% hard hits, exceeding the numbers from 2 years ago, striking out at 14.8, walking at 11.1. Freddie Freeman back to spectacular mode. Maybe not getting the full credit that he deserves today in the home run model, honestly, at 8.34. You've got other guys showing a ton of power in this lineup, too. 992 from Max Muncy, 8.07 for Andy Pajes down lineup. Conforto at 7.94. James Outman, if he plays today, at 2,200 on both sites, 7.13 in the home run model. Little bit of power upside from the left side, always makes good contact. Interesting option down lineup if they play him. And then a couple guys just named Ohtani and bets up at the top of the lineup. So, Freddie Freeman, to answer your question, home run pick of the day. They're going up against Brandon Pfaadt. He's allowed a 4.14% home run rate so far. That comes with 45.5% hard hits, which is alarmingly over our threshold. So is 91.2 miles an hour of exit velo on average. We're looking for 90 as our threshold barrier there. 8.9% barrels is concerningly high. The 10.8 degree launch angle is manageable, but last year that was 14.1. Year before that was 18.2. Had a bit of a home run issue for a stretch last year, but managed it down to a 3.16 rate. Year before that, over 96 innings in 18 bumpy starts, it was 5.23. But if you remember that season, at the back end of that season, he also had a very strong stretch of starts where he managed the home runs a little bit more. That was still his one negative attribute during that stretch too, though. So model's got a long memory. Some obvious home run downside, both from this year and from back here. This year was a little bit more manageable, but there was premium contact that still feeds the beast for that home run upside. He is a good pitcher, though. 3.79 ERA, 3.50 xFIP, a very tidy 20.7% strikeout to 4.1% walk. That's not bad. Last year, he struck out more, 24.3% to a 5.5% walk rate, was inducing more swinging strikes by about a half a point, had a much better CSW, but we haven't lost walks given the lack of the dip in overall strikes. The stuff has come down somewhat. Seems like he's managing a little bit more than actually, pitching and going after hitters. Probably accounts for the uptick in home runs. Last time out, he gave up a pair of home runs over 4 2/3 to the Phillies, but that could happen to anybody. 6 earned runs on 9 hits, struck out 6, had 6 Ks in the game before that against Atlanta, gave up 2 earned, didn't allow a home run, walked just 1. 9 hits allowed is a lot against that team especially, but no home run. Didn't allow a home run over 6 to Tampa Bay in the start before that, struck out 5, just 1 run on 4 hits. Was really outside of that 6-run game and a 4-run game earlier in the season against Washington, in which he still took the win, went 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, struck out 4, but 3 home runs allowed amounted to 4 earned runs. So in some ways a meltdown, but in some ways just 3 mistake pitches that traveled. Pretty good start. Hasn't really been bad. It's very much in play at 8,000, 9,100. It's just a little bit pricey to be taken on the Dodgers. On a slate like this where all 8 pitchers are easily playable, he's on that lower tier of guys, as we saw. In fact, he's near the bottom of it. And he's the guy who's offset by price. Lodolo on FanDuel is a little bit higher price than these other spots, but this is obviously uniquely offset by price, and it probably shouldn't be given the opponent. It's a little bit unfair to do that with Brandon Pfaadt, but what it should do is render him completely unowned. I would not expect people to go there. I would use it. But it doesn't give you the price advantage that it ought to. If you could grab this at like 78 on FanDuel, on DraftKings, it's manageable at 8,000, but it's not those $6,000 values, and you get just as much out of like the Jose Soriano option. So it's a little bit broken price-wise, but again, it should keep people away. Yamamoto, even against the Diamondbacks, easily worth the 10,000, the 10.8. He's pitched to a 32% strikeout rate so far, a terrific sub-1 ERA. Betrayed a little bit by a 2.31 xFIP, but obviously that's still spectacular. Sub-1 whip, 13.8% swinging, 31.2% CSW, keeping home runs off the board, keeping launch angle to 2.8 degrees, 4.4% barrel rate. Cy Young contender so far over 7 starts. He has been fantastic, every bit as good as advertised. 6 innings last time out, allowed 1 hit to the Braves in Atlanta, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks. Lost a few walks the game before that. 5 innings against Pittsburgh. He was a little disappointing. Just 1 earned run, but 3 runs allowed on 5 hits. Struck out 5 and walked 4. That was coming off a 10 strikeout game over at Texas. Over 7 innings, he allowed 5 hits, no runs, 10 Ks, no walks, 9 strikeouts against 1 walk the start before that. He's just really, really good. It's a really challenging lineup. Diamondbacks are good at avoiding strikeouts. They're good at drawing walks. 18-4, 9.2 last year, 19-6, 9.2 the year before that. So far this year, same group of hitters, 19-4 and 10.9. They have Ketel Marte in place up in his usual 2 spot. This is a really good Diamondbacks lineup. You can see what Vegas thinks of it at 4.39. So as discussed at the top of the show, at price relative to the rest of the slate, how things just kind of interlock, Yamamoto needs to be better than everybody else does. On like a relative sense, like man for man, he needs to be better at his price than anybody else does at their price. He's more than capable of doing it, but it is a tall order. Diamondbacks put 3 runs on him. It changes the shape of his day. That means he needs to go for 10 strikeouts. And this is a difficult lineup to punch that many guys out against. They give up more. He gives up more runs than that. He gives up an oddball home run. You're getting burnt at that price. So very, very much in play. But also, again, given the combinations available, the ability to just go there and there and get around them, there and there or here. These two together. Again, you can put any 2 of these guys together on DraftKings, including 2 of the very cheap guys. You obviously need to fade the monster starts out of like 3 of these guys, but Lodolo, Soriano are easily, Pepio, same thing, easily competitive with Chris Bassett for 96.85. These guys are all within range. So any combination of any 2 pitchers on this slate, totally viable. So he, again, does need to be better than even Lusardo at 10-2, 9,000, even Bassett at 9.6. Just needs to be individually better. But you are talking about probably, again, him and Schwellenbach, in my opinion, top 2 guys on the slate, but everybody's at least good. We already did the Dodgers lineup in brief, but just to hit the guys down toward the bottom of the lineup again real quick. Hae-Sung Kim at 25-26 is very, very cheap. He's been good over 12 plate appearances, 2 steals already, a 139 WRC plus, put good bat on ball so far. 18.2% hard hit rate, not exactly crushing the ball, but putting it in play, reaching first base is all he's there for. As a wraparound guy from the bottom of the lineup to pop ahead of Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, that's not bad. That helps average it down. And if you're putting it together with Outman, there's reasonable upside there. Ignore the 57.1% hilariously high strikeout rate in his 7 plate appearances so far. He's already hit a home run. Last year, it was a disappointing season. 4 home runs, 2 steals in 156 plate appearances, mostly in and out of the lineup. Year before, though, 23 homers, 16 steals in 567. He was pretty interesting. A 188 ISO, a 118 WRC plus as a young player. Left-handed, completely inexpensive. That season, he had an 11.1% barrel rate, which is why he had eyeballs on him coming into last year as an upside guy. Completely, again, disappointed and was just missing for most of the season last year. I assume these are not here because they're very large. He's got a 100% barrel rate and a 100% hard hit rate in what is probably one batted ball event, and it was probably that home run. But he's obviously got upside. So for the 2,200, if you just go like this, now I get Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, and Mookie Betts for 4,600 apiece, 4,620. So you got to call it 4,700. That's pretty nice discount from where they're priced. And those are 2 high-quality bats down toward the bottom of the lineup. You could probably do the same thing with Outman and Michael Conforto. Max Muncy is uniquely cheap for his talents down there at 3,400. I know that he's scuffling at 177, 304, 274. I mostly just care about the premium contact numbers. 320 xwOBA, we're at least coming back up to like average kind of numbers with monster power upside if he gets going right. So he's just cheap at third base over here. Andy Pajes, with his contact ability, last year it was 10.7% barrels, 40% hard hits. The hard hits in the barrels have kind of dipped this year, but he's been productive. He's hit 6 home runs. He's got a 304 xwOBA with a 205 ISO. Where the truth lies is probably somewhere in the middle, but I think that's a cheap bat at third base for 34, 28 on FanDuel. There's a lot of upside there. And then if we're going to the Diamondback side, Corbin Carroll at 6,400, putting up star caliber numbers, 11 home runs on the season, getting on base at an absurd clip, carrying a 422 xwOBA and 17.3% barrels, looking probably the best he ever has. 167 WRC plus, phenomenal option at those prices. Or even at those prices. Ketel Marte, honestly, a couple bucks cheap at 53 on DraftKings, at 33 on FanDuel. He's only at 262, 380, 333 over his 50 plate appearances, a 345 xWOBA, but creating runs 8% better than average. Not striking out, drawing his walks just like he typically does. Hasn't really barreled too many balls in the small sample, but he'll get there. He's way too good to continue to linger down in the low number territory. Take advantage while he's a couple bucks cheap at second base. He's probably your best option at the position. Pavin Smith, 4,400, 2,800. Love the upside for the price. Really surprised that they haven't priced him up on either site, especially DraftKings. And 44 is an increase, but I know I said basically the same thing the other day. Over 109 plate appearances, 287, 431, 529. Crushing baseballs, 18.9% barrels, 4 home runs. This is what we expect from this player. It's the top end of what we expect, but he's always been a good prospect bat. Just needed room. Josh Naylor, 47, 3,000, 299, 377, 455 to start his season, 358 xWOBA. It's a masher. 12% strikeouts and 11% walks. He's even swiped 6 bases this year, which is total outlier. Love the upside at under 5,000 on DraftKings at first base. That's a great option. Positional conflict with Pavin Smith. They really should resolve that by giving Smith outfield eligibility. He's got it on FanDuel where it's less necessary. First base, Josh Naylor on either side, though, priority bat if you're going to this team. Suarez, 4,200, very, very cheap for his power upside. 3,200 on FanDuel, also cheap. I know he's sub Mendoza over 150 plate appearances. I just don't care. 10 home runs, a 265 ISO, a 363 xWOBA, 16.3% barrels, 57.6% hard hits. When he makes contact, ball travels. The thing is, against Yamamoto and his 2.8 degree average launch angle, it's a challenge to hit home runs. So we do acknowledge that. We do acknowledge that we're only at a 5.20 in the home run model with a spectacular home run hitter like Eugenio Suarez. Everybody in the model is down around halfway to the magic number. It's having an impact, and it's there. It's in the projection. But if you're going to this team, you're absolutely prioritizing that bat at those prices. Gabriel Moreno, with his ability to put good bat on ball, get on base as a $2,800 catcher, if you're targeting Yamamoto, you are absolutely including Moreno in your lineup on DraftKings. On FanDuel, a lot less of a priority, but $2,300 is a good price. You've just got multiple shots at first base, catcher Yuto. No home runs on the season. Getting on at a 316 clip right now, carrying a 332 xWOBA under an unimpressive slash line. Last year, 5 home runs, but a 353 on base over 351 plate appearances. Year before that, 339 over 380 plate appearances. Small sample the year before, but a 356 on base in that. So technically, you're buying him at like the low as far as his on base skills go. Really interesting option for this price, even against this pitcher. Honestly, as a one-off, that's a very playable catcher one-off. What was Remoto's price? Like 39 for 1,100 cheaper than Remoto. That's really interesting. I don't like targeting Yamamoto at all, but that player at that price would be a good buy in that situation. Lourdes Gurriel, Alec Thomas, Geraldo Perdomo down lineup. Perdomo, another spectacular on-base option. Alec Thomas has been giving us that skill set so far this year. He's at 333 over 102 plate appearances. He's also put very, very good bat on ball. Noteworthy upside there. That's honestly worth discussing. Last year, 7.6%, 46.8% hard hits. Year before, a 40+% hard hit rate, but limited on barrels. It's just small sample. 103 plate appearances last year, 402 plate appearances the year before with the lower end contact. He hit 9 home runs. He stole 9 bases, but was otherwise not that productive. Got on at just a 245 clip in his 103 last year, was missing for most of the season. But there's a little bit of life there, given those hard hit numbers, given the ability to put barrel on ball and increasing productivity in, again, small samples there. 295, 333, 411 so far with a 331 underlying xWOBA, creating run 6% better than average. He's stolen 3 bases. Even if you're just looking at him as an on-base wraparound guy with speed and maybe a little bit of oddball power, that's an interesting cheap bet in your outfield at 33.26. Again, don't like attacking Yamamoto, but if you're doing it, you've got a full 9-man lineup here. Perdomo's getting on at a 395 clip this year. That's supported by everything he's done over the past few seasons. A lot of that was up at the top of the lineup. I think he's more valuable to us DFS-wise down here where people don't necessarily go to him. 4,500 at shortstop. 36 on FanDuel. This is a much better price, obviously. Here, he's less valuable given the price tag. But over here, with his ability to get on and reset the table for these guys 3 times through the lineup, your only time you sacrifice something is the first time around the lineup. There's a little diminishment in the plate appearances. He makes up for that down there by what the lack of ownership will be, by having the cheap price tag with his ability to get on base. And then he's ahead of Carroll, Marte, Pavin Smith, Josh Naylor, Suarez. That's exactly what you would want. So given what becomes a sneakier situation, I like him better down here. Gurriel's the guy who's been struggling, but I have a ton of faith. He's at least hit 6 home runs. 319 xWOBA hovering around the average, a good 197 ISO, not quite over 200, but close. 9.2% barrels from a hitter that we know is better than this. I believe in the upside. 3,400 is a good price. So is 27. Again, just a very challenging pitcher to go attack. Dodgers bats, Yamamoto. Diamondbacks bats, Brandon Pfaadt. All 4 things are in play. Every single piece of this slate is in play. All 8 of those guys are in play. All 8 teams against those guys are in play. Some of them are worse than others. The Reds, again, notably low run total. That's worth, again, looking at. The fact that the Reds are at a 3.38 implied total against Schwellenbach, while the Diamondbacks' better lineup is at mid-4s, 4.4, call it, against Yamamoto, tells you the offset between not only the 2 pitchers, but also between these 2 teams from the lower end of maybe perceived matchups. Just if people are looking at, good pitcher shouldn't play against that guy. Vegas isn't necessarily telling you that. The Diamondbacks are at a higher total than the Angels, the Reds, the Rays. They're only slightly offset from the Blue Jays. A little bit more offset, but less than a half a run different than the Braves, than the Phillies. So maybe not as off the board as some people might consider them. Again, 9.5 run total in that game is the highest. The Dodgers are obviously getting most of it, but there's upside for offense in that game at the end of the night, out in the desert with the roof open, presumably. I assume that's why we're at a 9.5 total. Carlos Soto says these LA Arizona games can go sideways fast. Yeah, for sure. Power says I can see Pfaadt with a decent score and then the Dodgers scoring 9 runs on the Arizona bullpen. We can absolutely see that too. Carlos is a buyer and Freddie at plus 430 for the home run. I like it. Free money, Freddie. Beast of the night, Ohtani, says Dave Schneider. Yeah, that Ohtani home run mark is offset at the top of the board. Speaking of things that are kind of standing out. Handful of guys above the magic number. Several of them coming from the Braves. Couple of them from the Phils. Couple of them from the Blue Jays. But Shohei standing tall at 17.53. Pretty monstrous number. Very expensive. Obviously worthwhile. I kind of cruised through him and Mookie because they're just so good and so obvious. But Ohtani's up to 10 homers and 10 steals. A 182 WRC plus. An absurd 473 xWOBA. He's so close to being Aaron Judge. Obviously being a little facetious. Goes back and forth. He's spectacular. Mookie at a 121 WRC plus. A little bit limited in terms of the ISO from where you'd really want him. 322 xWOBA is around the average. Last year it was a 202 ISO. Created runs 41% better than average. Hit 19 homers. Stole 16 bases. By some accounts, you could say it's a little bit of a light start for Mookie over 148 plate appearances. Had a really good stretch, cooled a little bit, 258, 351, 422. There's nothing wrong with what's going on here, but maybe by comparison to last year and where we expect the player, we are a little bit down. 2.6% barrels and 32.2% hard hits, maybe something to keep an eye on. Strikeouts obviously extremely low, walks extremely high. It's still Mookie Betts, but we did have, if you remember back when people were panicked about it about 8 weeks ago, he did have that weird weight loss issue coming out of the Japan series. Maybe something to keep an eye on if the underperformance continues. But again, not that he's been bad. Perfectly serviceable 2-hitter. Maybe they should flip him and Shohei. But obviously Shohei in that leadoff spot is tremendous. Love the upside for Freddie today, though. Home run pick of the day. Let me 512. Feels early. What do you guys want to talk about? We did do an hour 40 on 4 games. It's not like we're that far off the usual show length. Love Schwelly at the top of the board at any price, 87.77. The sites are being generous, giving us that gift. Tons and tons of upside there. It's a high danger spot. They all are today. Every one of these teams could get to any one of these pitchers on an individual basis. As mentioned, Yamamoto's got to be extremely good at the high prices relative to the rest of the board, but is good and is capable of breaking off that start. Luzardo, tons of upside for K's against Tampa Bay, 10-2, 9,000, but not completely safe. Bassett, never completely safe, 9-6, 8-5, but tons of upside, especially with the increased strikeout numbers, the swinging strike numbers. Lodolo, high danger spot, but a great price on DraftKings, less so at 83 on FanDuel, but easily playable. Soriano on either site, similar upside, similar ceiling for a cheap price. Really like him. Got to find the Ks. That's the one thing against the Blue Jays. They're low strikeout. He's been low strikeout. But on the right day, he punches through enough of that to pay it off at those prices. Thought high danger spot at 91,800, but discounted somewhat. Out of the guys at the bottom, in the bottom 2/3 of the board, he's probably the most concerning to have at those prices, but it's also going to put him at the lowest ownership, I'd bet. And then Pepio, 6,300, great price on DraftKings. 76, great price on FanDuel. He's got enough to give you 6 good innings against Philly, find some Ks. On the wrong day, he gets completely destroyed, but he's on the board. All 8 of these guys are on the board. All 8 teams are on the board. Lineup confirmations will be on the site in just moments. We'll get that all updated. Tons and tons of time to build lineups. There's a link to Discord down in the description. Discord's always free. Come join us. That's where I'll be hanging out for any questions, anything like that, as we get the rest of these lineups in, as we build, be updating and monitoring NBA for the 1-gamer, NHL for the 2-gamer, as we crash into lock for those. Access to all of that, if you're not familiar, at rotoscouts.com, under $1 a day for all of it, all in, no per sport fees. No need to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars per sport for your projections, guys. We're trying to keep some money in your pocket, help grow the bankroll. Larry says, I think it was in The Athletic where they said Mookie's bat speed off a little bit. Definitely something to keep an eye on. I'll pull that up and take a peek. That would be noteworthy. Would explain some of the results we're seeing. Something that can come and go, somewhat though with time and effort, obviously. But yeah, let's get out of here. Let's wish you guys good luck tonight. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something and share the results like Lone Wolf did when you do. Congrats again to Lone Wolf on a second place finish. Nice little 10x night yesterday. Love it. Need to see more of it. Share those results on Twitter at rotoscouts, in Discord, whatever communication you prefer. But send those when you win. Makes me feel good when you guys are winning, even if I'm not. So I love to see that. With that in mind, guys, no show tomorrow. Going to be on the road tomorrow, but projections, everything's going to be up all weekend long. We'll be back live on presumably Monday. Keep you guys posted. Good luck in the interim. Let's go Knicks on Saturday. Weird 3:30 afternoon start. I think Larry mentioned that before. We'll be around. Go get them, gang. See you.